everyone, Yasin here, and welcome to another episode of Pointy Chins, where I take you through my art journey. Alright, so this is one of those, it starts ugly, but it will get better months. And I think it gets a lot better. But we have to start in the ugly phase, so trying expressions, and all of these are very tilted, and they're tilted in the same way. You can see if you drew a straight line from the middle of the hairline to the chin, it's like that's at an angle, and then the eyes are at an angle. So I don't know what was going on, but I was very tilted. Yeah. So moving on. Okay, so this one's probably the best. This little guy here is probably the best in all of it. And let's just move on. All right. So here I was doing some studies. This one, and this one. I was doing studies of a guy called Guo, or Chivalrous Innuendo, I think he goes by now. And I just like the way he does proportions. He has like a cool way of doing things and keeping things clean, and that's something I'm trying to get is cleanliness. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, overall these are getting a bit better. I have a tendency to add too many lines because I'm trying to figure out everything. Then when you try and figure out the everything, what tends to happen are things like this, where you aren't sure and you're thinking while drawing. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, and it's something that's kind of hard with pen to deal with, because your thoughts are very evident. And I was thinking about this, like, what is pen good for, and what is it not quite good for? And I think pen is good for understanding line economy and visualization if you know what you're going to put down. So, for instance, if I was looking at reference and I was trying to draw from reference and I was using pen, that would probably be a good idea, because what I'd be doing is I'd be using the pen very carefully, and I kind of have a sense of what needs to be there, and so I can slow down and think about things. But where I think pen is perhaps not so good is when you're trying to solve problems and you're not quite sure what a thing will look like, but it's more like, I'll know it if I see it. And in that, you very well may need to have more of a trial and error approach, where you're putting down lines and then asking yourself, is that right? And then if not, well, erase and try again, and erase and try again. But I didn't know that at this time, so I was just thinking like, no, okay, well, it's good to use pen, and continue using pen. But things get very messy. So here, just thumbnailing, because that thought crossed my head. Here, I'm still in this period of just like, I don't know what to do exactly. Things are getting better. The proportions are getting better. I'm getting a bit more consistent, but I'm still not quite sure what to do. This face pretty much sums it up. Kind of lost at this point. So, let's try cross-hatching. Let's try playing with proportions and like stretching the figure a lot and making this super horizontal thing, which is, it's okay. And then, yeah, just playing around some more, pushing poses, thinking about, again, combining the caricature-y, cartoony stuff with the more stylized versions. Here, I'm doing that with this side view, where I'm incorporating some more of the sharp shapes. And one thing with the sharp shapes is they definitely flatten things out quite a lot. So although it might look cool, or at least to me it might look cool, it certainly does flatten things out. Whereas if I don't get overly sharp like this, and I remain a bit more blocky, it still seems to have the form. So that balance is really important. I quite like this guy. He's just extremely pushed. He's got humongous shoes on and these bell-bottom pants, and he's kind of sitting in a way that's not really supporting his weight. But I don't think he minds. Very, very strange and pushed person. Okay, so here I was thinking about how I need to push the body more and keep it more like the faces, because the faces are very pushed. If you just look at this proportion, for instance, this is not a regular proportion. Clearly he's very boxy and stuff, and I tend to do this, but then I have more normal proportions that I try and stick in the body, and here I was just going for much more pushing. So add a boxy head, boxy body, and some rectangular boxy legs. She was supposed to be a bit more triangular. This one was triangular. You might be able to see, actually, there are some shapes that I start with. So yeah, you can see here there's a triangle, and then this one has like a upside down teardrop shape. And yeah, I pushed it in a way where his head is just way up there, and the body is all squished. Everything's squished, but the legs are super long, and I think it kind of works. I kind of like that one. This one is more like a sail shape. This one as well. These two are kind of like the letter D shaped. This is a triangle, but inverted from this one. And then again, triangle. This one, I'm not sure. Kind of a D shape, I guess. A line. And yeah, so I was just thinking, okay, let's experiment and try things. And then here, Flavia lent me her brush pen, like I think it's the Pentel Pocket Brush. And so I was just playing around with that, and it was kind of like the result was cool. I liked how it looked, but I didn't really like using it as a tool in terms of how it felt. But I did get quite a lot from just experimenting and getting to see things in a bit of a different way, and seeing how, like with this one, I think out of these ones, probably this one's my favorite. Just how some of the messy lines can kind of look more presentable. Whereas with pen, if you look at this guy who's somewhat similar, all the mistakes are very apparent, and they don't look very presentable. They don't look like they're on purpose. It looks more like you're just rushing things. So having the ability to choose what lines I emphasize and having line width really was kind of interesting. And so I continue with that for these ones, just trying to see what I could do, how you can use the different tool. And it's got a lot more randomness to it, I guess. And that's kind of cool how you can block in shadows. So for the ear, I could block in more of the occlusion shadows, or occlusion, and leave other areas, like this whole area I didn't define. And so you can leave a lot more implied. And because it's a second pass, because first you draw, like I drew the whole thing with pen first, and then I added this brush pen on top. It gives me a chance to consider, like, okay, here's a structure, now how do you work it? And for instance, with things like this, the hair, you can just get in strokes that give the texture of hair. And so that was like, oh, that's cool. I can't just do that with a regular pen. But as I said, I wasn't really having fun with the tool itself. But what I did like was just experimenting and like, oh, okay, things can look more presentable than they were before. And so maybe I can try more things, because experimenting with this experiment seemed to pay off. So Flavia also she has a lot more tools than I do, like way more. She has these rake pens, like that. And I really like the ink in them. I think the ink is great, and they're very thin. And they're they're capable of extremely thin lines. Like this is actually, I guess it's not that much thinner than the pen I already use. Actually, it's a bit thicker, but it feels really thin. The lines feel really thin. The ink is very saturated and intense and cool. And so I thought, okay, let's just work with that. So with these ones, I started with a basic structure with the purple pen, and then I used the green to flesh out something. So you can see how the eye sockets were sort of placed. The head was generally the position was marked out, but none of the details were there. So the thing with the rake pen is, if you use it with the corner, you get these very thin lines, and if you use it horizontally, you get these much thicker lines. So here I was mixing up the direction of the pen, and it got that result. And then this is just a regular pen. And so here I tried, again, a very basic outliney thing, or a block in, and then use more pen. And I wanted to keep things a lot more suggestive. And this one, it really felt like, I can do more than I've been doing. I can push things further. And that was kind of eye-opening. That, I don't have to... I guess what I was thinking is, a lot of the reason my works don't look so good is because of just inability, and I wasn't considering that tools can play a factor in that some people might do work that you really like, but they might be using tools that kind of help them. And this is probably something that is a bit controversial, because you get so much talk about people using brushes, for instance, right? Like if people are working digitally, they kind of the noob person, the person starting out, will be very interested in what brush are you using, because they want to get a result really soon. And the professional person is kind of expected to say, well, brushes aren't really important. It's the fundamentals, and you have to learn the fundamentals. And yes, I agree that that's probably right. But for myself, I kind of kept treating myself like a noob, and didn't realize, like, you've probably learned enough of the fundamentals to start thinking about tools and brushes a little bit. So here what I started doing is I took both the experiences of the brush pen and the rake pen, and I didn't really like the tool themselves, but I liked the effect. And so one tool I really do like is the water brush. And so I just, I went back to the water brush. I got my water brush out, and I tried to just add an outline to the figures, and it really helped. It looked a lot more presentable. And yeah, I'm adding my circle things. And then I tried another page where I do the same thing as this page, but without the circles, just to see, like, what does it look like with circles everywhere in the background, and what does it look like without. And what I felt, and this is just personal opinion, of course, but I felt the circles really help to make it so my eye just looks at the figures, and I don't get too distracted. Where in this one, I kind of have a hard time focusing on one person, because my eye kind of drifts in this negative space, and I kind of get into a rhythm where I'm just looking at the different shapes, and it's very hard to just focus on one thing. So I'm not quite sure what that's about in terms of, the psychological or visual aspect of it. Like, why is it having a bunch of circles, which I would guess it seems more like, well, that would clutter things and make it so it's hard to focus on something, but actually it seems to do the reverse. I guess it just cancels the negative space and the interest in the negative space, whereas this emphasizes it. I'm not sure. I'm just talking. I'm just making up theories. I have no idea why this works. So if you do have an idea, feel free to, write in the comments. This is why that thing works. Or maybe you find that this is actually much more distracting with all the circles everywhere as opposed to this. But for me, personally, I thought the circles really helped, so I decided to stick with them. And I found that putting this outline really helps me focus on the shapes a lot more, and it makes it feel like all the shapes are more purposeful. Like, just, they're the same sketches as I was doing before, or similar, but somehow it's more presentable, as if this is on purpose, and less just scribbly everywhere. So, yeah, I mean, you can see kind of here how, because there are a bunch of scribbly lines and some are going over, that could feel messy, but then the fact that there's only one border being defined is clarifying things. It's letting you know, okay, this is what I intended, not any of these additional lines. Even if you see additional lines, they're not important. Do not pay attention to them. And so in that way, I was able to clean things up. Working on things like hands and kind of squishing a thing and faces. I felt for some reason, once I started doing this, I could I don't know if it's me or it's because of the water brush or not, but I felt like the shapes were easier for me to imagine. And so I feel that really helped. With this wolf guy, there's more gesture. Even though he's very stiff, it still feels like, because, I don't know, the shapes are contained, they kind of work. I like this one quite a lot. In this page, I just decided to use a water brush as I was doing it before, and not outlining the figures, but rather just, coloring in areas, just to see how that works. And I think that works well as well. It still adds a degree of presentation, which is pretty necessary. So, continuing on, I don't think the anatomy really works for this one, but I do like the gesture. I have this. I was trying to draw kind of proportions that are more atypical. Like with this guy, he has a very, very distant eyes. Kind of reminds me of a pug or some kind of dog like that. Just to play around. Pushing things. This person's very sharp, angular. And this one is terrible, this lizard thing. Whatever it is, I really don't like it. And I don't like this bird on a stick. But I like this guy. That's cool. So here, I just added more lines to suggest an outline. This is just the same pen, the purple pen. And I think it works a lot. So adding line width and line variation is really helping. So continuing on, I'm really focusing on shapes. I'm focusing on negative shapes and positive, or negative space and positive space. And I'm focusing on trying to capture a personality, and try and exaggerate the body as much as I exaggerate the face. So that's really the goal, is to not leave things normal or regular, but really push them. And like this lady, I can imagine her, oh, oh, wow, what's that? I don't know. That's just what I see. And then with this page, again, I guess I'm a bit on an experimentation high. I was trying to see, okay, what happens if you put alcohol in a water brush? Like, I think I was using isopropyl alcohol. And what happens is I think it ruins the brush, but it behaves like a marker. Like it just looks like a felt tip pen, which is very strange. So, yeah, I guess that's just how markers work. It's just ink and alcohol. But yeah, I got these splodges just because the ink just fell out and dropped here and it dropped here, and then it became very weird, very hard to control. So that was a failure of an experiment. It didn't really work out. So I got my water brush back with water and just some thumbnail idea, more gestural things, imagining like there's wind blowing and more of a pushed face. So, and then I think this is still some remnants of the alcohol because the ink is quite inconsistent, or maybe I just added more ink or something. I don't know. But yeah, playing around. I like this person's face and even the body and stuff. It's starting to fit more. Like it's working. There's a cohesion that's beginning. Even this one, like he's got this very slender head, and so the body is also very slender. I think the old guy I don't quite have yet, and I would do this differently now, but it just feels like I should have considered the spine more, I think, in terms of like how an old person's spine behaves. This one's a bit better. Actually, this is a lot better in capturing that feeling. So yeah, getting much better. And it's kind of good to see that it's not all in vain. Sometimes the pointy chins, it's kind of like the improvement is there, but it's very up and down. So the graph would be very spiky up and down, and then it can feel at times like you're not improving at all, or that maybe this idea of, well, I want to combine everything and all this stuff is a bit naive, and that really they should just be separated. But this is helping me to see that no, there is a place for all this stuff I'm doing. And I mean, the whole point of Pointy Chins, the whole point was to I like this person a lot, but anyway, that's not the point. The point was to catalog a success. Like I was hoping there would be a success, and that I could show people. Like I was hoping I would have a really cool style, but I always felt like when I look at other artists who have really cool styles, I want to ask them, well, how'd you do that? And they don't really have a good answer. And then the next thing is like, well, do you have early sketches so I could kind of see how you evolved? And I really wished I could get their thought process and how you go from something very realistic. And in my case, it really was a case of only really being able to draw from reference or realistically or caricatured, but still from reference, and move it to more of a stylized thing. But still unique, and not just like, well, you're just drawing anime that everyone's seen before, but rather you have your own individual voice and you're drawing stuff you think is cool. So anyway, yeah, I like this one. I like this one. This one, not so much. It feels like the gesture just isn't there. Like the forehead's working okay. So a lot of times when I don't like these pieces, what I'm doing is I'm imagining like a center line going through the body, or through the head in this case. So the center line goes this way and then it goes down, but then the nose it just goes down this way, which makes the face look very flat. And so what would have been better is a bit more of a convex and then going down. And the teeth, again, they don't feel like they're on a three-dimensional surface, so it ends up just not quite there. The eyes and things seem like they're melting off the face. So that's an example of what's not good. This one's a bit better in that. Like you get the forehead, and you're kind of seeing how the top of the head flows by the way these lines go. They're all pulling to this point. So that suggests that this whole area is flat. I didn't suggest it with the shading. I could have done that as well by changing the direction I was shading in. But anyway, you do get the sense that there's a flat plane here, and then you go down, and then you go out, and the nose comes forward, and then down. Like maybe this part gets a bit too flat, this whole mouth area, but it does feel a bit better in terms of form. And so I prefer that one. In this one as well, it's not quite there, but you kind of get the feeling of form. If you could imagine this in 3D, well, I mean, you should be able to imagine your 2D drawings in 3D. If you've done a good job, it should work. It should look like, yeah, I can kind of see how that would look like if it was a 3D model or a sculpture. This one, trying to play with dynamic movement and stuff. The top part of the figure is like, yeah, it's the torso, the arm. I still need a lot of work with it, but and the debris and stuff, it helps, but like it's better than I could have done before at this point. So let's leave it at that. And then this one, again, you know, the sharps really flatten things out, but I wanted to play with that shape, and I quite enjoy this shape, this extremely pushed shape. Seems like if you had like a snowboarder or a skateboarder, and they just go like down this, and then zoom, fly off her nose. And then this guy I like a lot. I think the proportions are working. I was thinking probably of Bob Meatbag and how his characters, they all have this, well, not all of them, but there's a very common expression of, I don't know what it is, being maybe a lost expression or an apathetic expression or something. But yeah, I tried to capture that and work with, again, more stretch shape. So his head is really stretched and it's very tall, but it's very narrow. So I make the arms very long and narrow, the torso long and narrow, like everything gets long and narrow. So this guy's basically a rectangle, and that's how I'm thinking of it. With this one though, she's more like a ball, a circle shape, even though there's spikes everywhere. If I look at her shape in general, it's much more circular. So if I was going to do the rest of her body, she would also have more of a circular torso, circular, like rounder shapes. And then I might cut into them. See, like there's a implied shape, which is a circle, and then the shapes that are making that, which in this case are triangles. So there's lots of sharp triangles here. Kind of looks like an explosion or something went off. But so that's a secondary shape. So the first shape is a circle, and the secondary shapes are triangles. So you can do the same with the body. You can make like a circular shape, and then maybe with clothing you can make it triangular. And this is all very contrived. You of course don't have to do any of this, but it's just a principle of design, I think. I don't know, I'm just making this stuff up because I'm figuring it out as I go. So I'm hoping these are principles of design and not like, no, that's completely wrong, that's not what you should do. So here I was working on, I don't know, just a guy, and here I was working on a woman, and this guy, I think I drew this one first, and then I was thinking like, okay, fine, I like this head, I like the proportions and everything. I did push it very far, like you can see how the nose is not on a center line. It's kind of broken, but I intentionally did that because what I was discovering is if you make things very asymmetrical, they can also look very interesting. So in this case, I was really pushing that, and indeed it does look a lot more interesting than if I really tried to keep everything very stable in a way. And I think this is one of the things 2D art really can can do well is kind of breaking rules, breaking perspective, breaking all sorts of things just for an effect. And so I took him, and then it's like, okay, what about a body? So tried to give him a body that kind of fit. And I was thinking of this shape for the head, and then flipping it and using that for the body, with the neck kind of joining these two shapes. This guy I don't like at all. I don't know. I don't like him. Don't want to talk about him. But this one, yeah, again, see how the eye and everything, it's a bit as if there's perspective, which, you know, I guess it's implied with her as well. Like, her eyes are very different sizes, but they work, and it kind of feels like they're all on this flat plane, and there's a pull going on. So she's all about this zigzaggy gesture. Like, it goes from her head down, and then down this way, and then it goes this way, and then it hits this hip, and then it juts out, and then it shoots back to this leg. So kind of interesting, I guess. It's stupid as well, but it's also interesting. And I think if you're going to be stupid, you might as well be stupid and interesting. For this guy, I feel like I didn't pull this off. The head is fine, but as soon as I got to the body, I don't hate the body, it just doesn't fit him. Like, it's too lean and muscly, and he looks kind of scrawny, but maybe it works, but I'm not sure. I feel like, yeah. And this person's kind of reacting to that. He's like, yeah, I don't know if that works. So, here, trying to work with shapes again, thinking of a chicken, like little, the rooster's crown. Is that what it's called? A crown? I think. I don't know. That, and then, so I was thinking of that, but I don't think these shapes are flowing well. One of the ways of feeling the flow is if you just follow the shape, like you follow the head, does it kind of encompass this, or does it feel kind of broken? Like, does it feel like you have one solid shape flowing easily from one thing to another, or does it feel like you've got a bunch of shapes that you just kind of put on top of each other? And this one feels to me too much like it's just cut out shapes that are put on top of each other, as opposed to shapes that naturally flow. Whereas in this one, although I don't like this veil thing and how it connects, because it looks very flat, because I don't understand what I'm doing, that's basically the crux of it. But it does have a much better flow to it, although this one's built off like rectangular shapes. I think it works. And then, you know, some more people. I find these two very, very entertaining. And then I decided, okay, so all this is well and good, but perhaps I should try applying this to real people. So I did some studies from reference, but heavily stylizing it. Although even when I heavily stylize it, it still looks way more realistic than this, for instance, when I'm just drawing completely from imagination. So I think I definitely get something from using reference, and maybe I lose something too in terms of how much things actually can get pushed. But things are much more structural and much more correct, so this really did help. And I like how I tried to pay special attention to things like the jeans and the rips and try to get those right. Not sure if I did a great job, but I do like this. I like this person quite a lot. Thought this was well done. In terms of capturing the, I don't know what you would call, like rich girl or something thing, where she's just very material, got a lot of money and spends her money on clothes type expression. And then, yeah, this one's imagination, and then these ones are probably all from reference. So I'm still working on trying to create full bodies and join these muscly dudes with the regular, these type, more cartoony ones, and trying to fit them in the same world. It's very hard for me. Like, it's much easier said than done, and also I feel like the artists who do this well probably just do it without thinking too much. It seems, anyway. That would be my guess, that it's somewhat natural and instinctive, whereas I don't have that instinct at all, and so I'm just trying to brute force it. This person, I'm really not happy with the way the face is, because I like that the face has this angle, but this angle just, it feels like it flattens it out too much. So I probably would have the nose less straight on and more at an angle here, the mouth shifted over a bit, and the chin shifted over even more. Here I was trying to work on decorative elements. It doesn't really make sense. My things don't really make sense, but there was an attempt to, like, I know people add stuff, like, I feel like I want to be good at the stuff that looks all, like, looks simple but has little decorative spots in the right place that makes it look a lot more complicated. That to me is really cool, because I'm lazy and I just want the maximum effect, and also I just kind of like that look. So I was trying to get that, not really successfully, but yeah, that's what I was trying to do. And things like, just elements like the gloves here, the headband. I have these things that I want to have in my work, but I don't, I haven't put enough drawing into achieving that. So here it's kind of the same thing, like, put things on him. Well, what? I don't know, put an armband on. Does that look like it works? No, not really. I'll put another one, make him hold something. Just trying to add more to it, so I'm not just drawing naked people all the time. This guy is funny, and this one I just tried to think of light hitting him and where the shadow would be, as opposed to just using the pen to color in an area. So here, it's really like, it feels to me that this is much worse, and it's because I'm not the right me. Like, whatever my brain is not in the right state to draw when I have these ones, it feels like, and that's why I'm struggling a lot more. And these ones, I feel, were a pretty big jump, though. I did them a similar thing, in the beginning of this episode, but these ones are working a bit better with the legs here being really long, and so you have this weight at the top, and then a lot of length, and I think they all got kind of stretched, and that was good. That was kind of working. So with this, I was thinking of a diamond shape. With this one, it also has a diamond shape. Actually, with all of them, they're variations on a diamond shape. You can see here. So you have the point, the top point, and then the widest point, and then the bottom. So you can actually see there is a diamond here, but here the widest point is way down here, diamond here, diamond here. This one's diamond is here. So I guess it worked with this whole diamond thing. That one has a diamond like that. That one has a diamond where it's at the shoulders, and then it goes down, and I just cut it off here. This one's diamond, I didn't really stick to it, but maybe just having a shape, and it doesn't really matter what the shape is, but just having a shape to kind of contain things helps you to imagine things within that shape. So again, it goes back to like looking at clouds and seeing things in clouds. You may not stick to the boundaries that you see, but it certainly does help to have something other than just white space where your eye falls off the page. And this one, I feel like with certain drawings, like with this one, it's foreshadowing, because I kind of know that the way I draw now is kind of close to this way, but I wasn't yet fully there yet to know that, so I might draw something and then not quite know, like, oh, is this going to be, like even this, all this is quite, I mean, I guess most of the work is foreshadowing, but some of it feels like I'm going off on the wrong direction, or in the wrong direction, whereas this feels more correct. So here I'm using bigger shapes, simplifying the shapes a lot more, eliminating details. See here, I got too detailed again. I'm defining things too much. But here it's like, no, allow bigger, emptier spaces. This is nonsense. But some of the other things are working. And so, yeah, some faces. Again, this one I like a lot more than this one, for instance, because this one, if you look at the negative space, there is some negative space, but not a lot. Whereas this one, the features are relatively smaller, and you have a lot more emptiness to rest your eye in. So for me, this is a lot more appealing than this one, or even this one, where there's a lot of visual information in a very small area, which is not a bad thing, but then you've got too much information here and not enough space to rest. And that's really important. Just being able to see where to rest your eye, like this one, for instance. And there's a lot more space to rest. But the features are still kind of clumped, maybe a bit too much together. Perhaps having the nose a bit smaller and a bit more space, or maybe a bit bigger, and then shrinking the eyes could work a little bit better. But it's still okay. Here I'm trying to figure out, okay, so fine. I eliminate detail, but I still need to show certain details, right? Like, the muscles that are in action, I still want to show those off. So here was just an attempt to, he's punching the ground and debris flying everywhere. Debris is really important. It's something I learned from looking at Joe Mad's work, is he uses a lot of debris, a lot of just stuff floating around, and that reminded me of Dragon Ball, when in Dragon Ball Z, for instance, when any of the characters would go Super Saiyan, a bunch of rocks and stuff would start flying around, or even as they just power up, like stuff from the ground just flies around, and that implies, well, there must be a lot going on. There's a lot of energy for all this stuff to be kicked into the air. So that's very good stuff to keep in mind, that the drawing itself can have a lot of action, but it's still not going to look as actiony as it might if you added the environment being affected. And in fact, if you have the environment being affected, you can get a lot less, you can get away with a lot less in the figure themselves. And you can do that with wind as well. Like, for instance, with this person, there's a feeling of the hair blowing and the skirt blowing and all this blowing because it's all getting pushed this way. And so even though she's just standing still, there is a sense of movement that's going on. And this could have been exaggerated much more and much better, but it's kind of just the point is that, yes, you can use the world or the environment to help convey a thing. And speed lines kind of do the same thing. It just implies wind and stuff. So, or movement and cutting through the wind and cutting through the atmosphere. I like this guy a lot. The simplicity is working. There's a lot of extra lines, but if I just focus on the lines that are there, I still like it. Whereas this one, it feels like there's a lot of lines, but it also feels like it's just not a very strong shape. It's too cluttered. There's too much going on. There's too much, I don't know, like the shapes are unclear, whereas this one has a very clear shape. You can see this, everything is pulled, it resolves at the back of the head and then it goes straight down. Or you could go up from the back of the head and then hit this point and then come down, and then the eyes and everything are kind of pointing you downward. So he's really looking down on something or someone, and you get that sense. So I'm quite happy with that one, but probably not with some of the others. Again, with clothing, I really suck. I'm kind of getting the sense that, okay, this comes down, and then it hits here, like this, the shirt. It goes down, and then it folds up, and this is one piece, but I'm not quite there in understanding. it's crazy how hard it is for me to understand some extremely basic concepts just because I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me, but it's very hard. So here, trying some twisting things. I'm not sure that's really working. And here's some more twisting. But it's okay. I've done worse. I've done worse in this episode, even. I've done worse. So, I like this one. This is kind of cool. Cool proportion. Maybe it's a bit too skinny here. Of course, a lot of people would say, of course, it's way too skinny. What the hell? But for me, it's like, yeah, okay. Maybe a bit too much. I like this energy, though, of this one. And the clothing is helping. Now, I mentioned the wind helping to describe things. Well, fabric can do that, too. Because it moves, and the folds that appear can really help to describe the energy that's flowing from one place to another. So here you have a twist. Now, I didn't really capture that with the fabric, but I very well could have, because I think I drew the body first and then wasn't really thinking about, well, she's going to be wearing anything. I probably drew the skirt, but not this as if it was fabric. Because if I did, and I included like folds coming around from here, that would be pretty cool. I think it would help sell that. I really like this guy. He looks sharp and he looks three-dimensional, and I like the eye, so that's kind of working for me anyway. And then this one, just having this outline really helps to focus in on the shapes. So this would be another not so great day. Basically everything is not working here. Like all the things I mentioned before. Sure, he's built off a basic diamond shape, but the shapes have not enough rest. The form is not reading. These shapes don't match. Like his head doesn't match his body. These ones aren't great. This one's moderately okay. This one's okay as a face, but it's got nothing to it, but whatever. Trying to work with very crazy fabric, like it's all flowing. So with that stuff, what you really do, or what I'm doing, and I don't think I did it well, but anyway, you focus just on this end line. So see, this line goes around, and here I just try to make it very angular, and goes down, comes up here, goes around, goes up here, goes around here, comes up there, and then whatever. And then you just draw the things going towards where they're coming from. But I don't think this makes any sense, really. Yeah. I guess this one's okay. I don't quite get the expression, but it feels like there is an expression. It seems like there's a thought in there somewhere. Whereas this one, I don't feel like there's much thought or anything. But these ones are a bit better. So again, this one has much better negative space. There's a feeling of form here. The variety of line widths is better. The structure is better. So this is working more. And then this one too. So I think in these ones, I'm starting to get the idea. I had someone comment how I always draw girls with receded hairlines like this and this, I guess. Sure, but it also helps with just shapes. If you think of the shapes, it's not so much like, oh, I'm drawing a person with a receded hairline. Kind of like this guy, I don't know, he has no hairline. But anyway, I'm just thinking of the bigger shapes. And this one works as well, even though the eyebrows are very big. The eyes aren't very big. See, if I made the eyes very big, I think that would take away from a lot. And then the nose is fairly small within the hole, but then the mouth is pretty big. So you have like a big shape, and then a smaller shape, and then another, I guess, big or medium shape. But then, although this is bigger, the jaw is also pushed outwards, so then it feels like there's enough negative space here as with this. So you have a negative space and then a positive space where there's a lot going on, and then another space that's kind of like pretty big and not much going on except the nose, and then again some detail here, some positive space. So I think that is working. And this one's just, the first drawing of the day usually is right in this corner, and it's usually the worst, and then kind of gets better. So I like this expression. Again, you'll see more and more. I start with a basic shape. Even with this one, I just started with this like basic block-in shape, even though the picture is like clearly, that basic shape goes all the way out here. Now there is nothing going on out here. The shoulder that I defined is here, but that still gives me kind of like a guide to know you are drawing roughly in this area and roughly in this shape, and then try to see something in that. And the shapes aren't random. I mean, sometimes they are, but often I'm just thinking more in the case of like maybe with this one, just like, well, I want to draw a person and they have more of this feel and they're kind of occupying a space. Actually, probably this one I didn't, but some of them anyway. Maybe this one. It's like, well, I want to draw a person within this area, and how do I do that? How do I get that across? And so what is the biggest shape I could see with this person? And I try and visualize that, and then I try and get that down. And if I get that down, it becomes much easier to add the other shapes. So I mentioned this before in videos and on YouTube and whatnot, but I think it's really important that if you can get the first thing, if you can get that correct, and then whatever you build upon, at least we'll start with that correct fundamental. Whereas if the first thing you put down is kind of off, then the next thing you put down has a lot more of a chance to also be off. So it's really important, like, what is the first thing you do? And the first thing, the very first thing probably is an idea. You have an idea, and if that idea is good, everything else will be a bit better. But in terms of actually putting stuff on the page, the first thing is really the space that the person is occupying. If you're drawing a person or whatever object or whatever thing you're drawing, like, what is the composition? Where is this person going to be? How much space do they occupy? What is the general shape you're going for? So you nail that, and then everything else can be built much better. So I like this person. It's working well. This one I don't like. I feel like the features are too big, and there's too much occupying space here. Like, shrink the eye, bring it closer to here, and it could work just fine. Again, the eyes are getting a bit too big. If I was doing this style again, and you wanted eyes that are this big, you'd have to add more space everywhere else, I think, or else really shrink the nose and the mouth. That would do it. That would solve the problem. If your eyes are this big, I mean, the nose and the mouth are already small compared to the eyes, perhaps, but shrink that even more. This is a better example, although this is very asymmetrical, but I think that was on purpose. But here the nose is much smaller, and then the eyes are quite big. And so I feel like when you have the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, you can make two of these big, but not all three. If you make all three big, it kind of loses something. And the ears, I guess you could also add. But if you make one big, it kind of works. If you make two big, it still can work. But if you make all three of them big, or all three of them small, it starts to lose something. But again, I don't want to say that as some kind of rule, like, oh, that's how I'm going to approach things. I think this person a lot. But yeah, so here I would say the eyes are pretty big, the nose is pretty big, but the mouth is quite tiny. And here the eyes are big, the nose is very small, and the mouth is also very small. In this case, the eyes aren't that big, the nose is quite big, and the mouth is, I suppose, medium. Here the eyes are big, nose is small, or maybe medium. It's not tiny, but then the mouth is quite tiny. So yeah, that I'm not could be helpful advice. Here, my red, the red ink was running out, so I didn't have any more of that red. Although I really liked that red, I didn't have much left, so I had to add some blue into the red ink, and it made this purplish color, which, I don't mind it. It's still fine, but yeah, you get this area where there's more like bluish, and then it goes a bit to the pinkish, and then it goes again where the inks are not quite fully mixed yet. So I don't know, I just like that effect, that's all. I was trying to work on shading, and again, I'm losing things here. Whenever I think too much about detail and adding shadows and stuff, it's very easy to lose the simplicity of the design, and also the bigger point of the shapes. So in this one, it's a much better thing, although the arms, I still don't really know how to, or at this time, I didn't know how to really render those. I think I would be able to do a better job now, but it's kind of interesting. I think the shape is interesting, where you've got the bun of the hair, and then from there you go this way, and then down there. And this one's a similar case, except with this one, she doesn't have really big breasts, so the stomach area is what kind of you bounce off, and then you go into the butt, and then you go down the thigh. Whereas this one, you go from the head, and then into the breasts, and then into the butt, and then down the thigh and the calf. This one, just like nothing, don't really like it, don't really care, but this one is working well. This is a shape I've used a bunch of times before. It's an ellipse, or an oval, I guess, I don't know, and then it's tilted, so it's like a diagonal elliptical shape. It's a very, very powerful shape, whereas this shape, it's more circular. I mean, maybe it's okay compared to what I might have done way back, but it's not as strong. But this shape is really good. It's like a kind of elliptical, but it's maybe a letter D shape or a sail shape. This has a similar shape. Those are good, but this one is a bit too... It's a bit too thick here, so you don't have a good flow where you're coming down like that. You're kind of just... You lose the energy in the back. Whereas this, you maintain a lot of energy. So this is a very powerful shape, and it's something I keep forgetting, but then I remember it, and it's like, oh yeah, this is very important. This is very powerful. It's important and powerful, and these are good. This head, I think, is working well. Looks like it's emerging from one spot, and I don't know. I like this one. I like this one. This one is not working because of how the neck works and how this doesn't flow. Yeah, these... I feel like I might be saying too much and it's just boring and I keep repeating the same thing, but what I would hope is that I'm repeating it because it's important. And so, yeah, I feel with this one there isn't a good enough flow, so if this was more connected into that arm, it would have flowed better. And then the head is very small and the body is very big, and I don't feel like that's quite working. I think if this whole area was squished a bit more, because the head is quite squished. If you look at the eyes and you look at the forehead, it's very small, and then this is a larger shape. So if I did that, and I also squished the upper body, and then made the bottom half of the torso much larger, and perhaps gave like skinnier legs, I think that would work a lot better for this person. This one's working okay, and these are okay. This one's funny. This one's not working really at all, and this one is not a good shape. It's kind of boxy here, but then you kind of lose it in the back. So I don't know. It's quite difficult to see stuff like that and not really know exactly how to fix it. So here it's a similar example to the last one, and I kind of recognized that I was doing this where I was making these super stretched heads, but they just look stupid. And then I looked at Norman Rockwell, and I did a study, and these two are Rockwell studies, and I thought, okay, he pulls the head much more on a diagonal. Like, if you look at this head, it's very horizontal. But if you look at this one, it's tall, but it's also, see how it's got this kind of like this balloon shape, I suppose. If you took a balloon and you tilted it, it's got that shape. And that's a much more interesting shape. Here you see it again in this kid's face, where, yes, it's very, the forehead is very reduced, but you have this very vertical shape, and then it gets pulled a lot more, and I like that shape a lot more. So I tried implementing it here, where I put some of that into it, and here as well. And it came across like, oh, that kind of works. That's much better than this, for instance. So this was one occasion where it really helped to look at someone else's work. In this case, Norman Rockwell's, because he's great. He's great at this stuff, and I am way, way, way behind his level. So here, also, taking it even further and pushing that cranium really big, but it still worked. So that was good. This is all fine. And then here, I wanted to just play around with shapes some more, but using sharper, simpler, and more cartoony, I guess, lines. Things aren't really following any specific thing. Like, you can see this would be a circle, right, for the earring, but it's just like all angular. But everything's angular, so as long as you make it consistent, you can pretty much make anything look good and acceptable. But if you make it where it's not consistent, that's when you run into problems. So yeah, just another page. I like this person's expression. It's quite nice. These two are, yeah. Okay, so working more on combining everything. So I mentioned the proportions before in the other lady, the one with the really long neck, how it wasn't working. So this is a bit better. It's not there yet. The legs aren't quite on board. Here I'm still struggling with the idea of how much you can push things. So here was an example of really trying to make the body one thing, and then really skinny and tall legs. This one's just more overall skinny, but with really long legs. This one has fatter legs, and this one has a big upper torso and actually a bit less going on here. But these kind of work. Even this one, it looks like she has a tiny head, but these are kind of working. They all feel like different people. I can't say they feel like these two would work in the same world. They feel just a bit too different, especially because this one has a different shape language. It's more blocky and defined, and this one's a bit more open, and it's got a bit more sleek shapes. So I prefer this one out of the two. But this is working better. So this one, I would say, is not quite there yet, and this one is much closer to being there. You can see the legs actually got shrunk a lot, and that helped quite a bit. This face is funny. Okay, so good. This one, I feel like it's getting a bit of that horizontal feeling again that I wasn't quite happy about. But it's overall, it's okay. So this day, I was again going back to that thing of putting clothes on them, trying to make cool outfits, which I struggle with. Here we have the horizontal face problem again. So I guess it's just not enough time for it to fully sink in terms of learning something. I tend to need to revisit it. Like, I need to learn my lesson, and then I usually forget the lesson, and then I need to keep working and then remember, oh yeah, that's a thing, and then go back. So with this one, I don't know, I thought of this kid, and then he's watching this other kid, so the kid's with his mom, but this kid's not, and this is kind of the result. He's all lonely, and he turns into this, or maybe he loses his mom or something, I don't know. Not quite happy with the mom, but the feeling is quite good for me, and I was kind of exploring this quite a lot in the next couple pages. So again, the subject of a more mature woman and this child, and looking into the abyss, and I don't know, and more. And here he's all evil. This represents the darkness inside him or something. But I was then going back to more of these faces. I guess they're... So here you can see how the water brush is getting a lot more blue. So over time the blue was winning, but at first the red is much stronger. So the red was giving it a run for its money, but eventually the blue came out on top, and now it's getting very blue. One could say this is my blue period. And so here, more faces. This is kind of there, I don't know. I'm not quite happy with the hair, but it's more like where I was starting with the pointy chins. Again, it's not quite there, but it's got more of the anime-ish thing. And I really want to combine all these things. I want to combine the anime-esque coolness with the cartoony exaggeration, with the realism's whatever realism offers. Accuracy, reality, maybe expression. The ability to get subtle detail. Because with anime, everything tends to be overblown, and you get very exaggerated expressions, but not very subtle expressions. And so, yeah, I'm working on that. Okay. So, shapes are getting better here. This person's very... I think this was just on purpose to do that pose. That there's a pose where you see both the front and the back of a person, and it's poo-pooed upon in polite society. You're not supposed to do that. But it actually it is possible to do. It's just not really looked upon, especially if you get too much where you're really showing the boobs and the butt. It can be quite pushed too far. Of course, it has a place. There's a reason that pose is sort of popular, because it gives a viewer a look into both sides at once. So as a narrative aspect, you get to see, like, oh, if you like a girl because of her boobs, or you like her because of her butt, or both, well, you get to see both things at once, which is, that's criticized for being very objectifying, but at the same time, well, of course it is. Of course, that's the whole point. That's something you can do with art that you can't really do with reality, where if you had a real model and you said, okay, now bend until we see a front view of your butt and a front view of your boobs, it wouldn't really work. So I think I've mentioned this before, but basically everything is fair game in art. I think in reality it's an entirely different story, but when it comes to art, I think it's important to allow for freedom of things, and as far as like judgment, or this is influencing minds and stuff, it's like, well, yeah, I guess maybe, but for those people, it's just like, make your own stuff and fight the message by showing something that you like, rather than by tearing down something that someone else likes. I think that's much better, is offering choice, because if you offer choice, maybe it's just people never saw what's in your head. Let's say you have a certain thing and it's like, I don't like that. I like more, maybe I like more rotund figures and I think that is beautiful. Okay, well, then draw those the way you like them, and then maybe someone else will see it and it's like, you know what? I like this artist because they draw these beautiful rotund figures as opposed to the twisted chewing gum figures. the stick of gum that just gets twisted. Anyway, I like this guy. It's working. It's good. I like this one as well. So yeah, this one has that horizontal issue again. It's painful. Painful to see that I don't remember things. So here, experimenting, a lot of experimenting, seeing, okay, what if I push ahead this much? Clearly these two no longer occupy the same universe, but by itself, it's okay. It's got something. I like the sleeves, cuffs. That's nice. And this page, I guess I just didn't put in the markings. Maybe I was just curious what does it look like without that. But it looks like it was also a bad drawing day, so clearly not a good idea. Let's not do that anymore. Let's keep the outlines. But yeah, playing around with shapes, trying to make them work. This guy's got like a crazy extended arm thing. I'm pretty sure that started off as a mistake and ended like, well, let's just pretend it was on purpose. And this one's supposed to have this flow with like fatter legs, but I didn't feel like it quite worked, so probably went the opposite direction, tried to do a very skinny thing. Still playing around with this idea of very long necks, which I think I'll keep, but here I thought, let's shrink it and see how that looks. And I think this looks a lot better in a way. This, at least it works, and that's a thing. There's a difference between something being interesting or you like it and something working. And so when I say this works, it doesn't mean this is right. It just means this is something that could work and it could be right. Or at least it looks right, but it's not like it's the answer. It's just an answer. Because with art, there's a bunch of answers. And it's important that the thing works. That's very important. It's important that things are cohesive, that it looks correct, that it looks like everyone kind of fits in the same world. But what that answer is could be a bunch of things. This is not... this isn't math where it's like 2 plus 2 equals, and then the answer is 4. And it's more like you get the answer as 4, and the 2 plus 2 is anything. Like, it could be 2 plus 2 equals 4. It could be 3 plus 1 equals 4. It could be 5 minus 1 equals 4. The answer, the 4 in this case, is what works. That is the thing. But how to get there, you can get there a bunch of different ways. You can use a bunch of different elements in that case. In that analogy, it's numbers, but in art, it's shapes and proportions and stuff like that. You can use a bunch of different things, but they all need to work in the end. It needs to make sense. So here, I was just experimenting with, instead of starting with the line and then putting in the water brush, I put in the water brush and then I put the line in, but I really didn't like it. I didn't like the result. This guy is an expression of my dissatisfaction. But whatever, you just experiment, because who knows, maybe I would have liked it. And then it would have been something that's like, oh, now I continue doing that because that's really great. But no, it wasn't. So yeah, here's a K that found her way in here. I kind of like this person, even though I don't think it's very elegant in terms of design. It seems quite clumsy. But I don't know, something about this is kind of interesting. I like this person's expression, sort of forlorn. But yeah, so next month, it's quite exciting because I'm going to be introducing a new project I'm working on, and you'll get to see that in the next month. So I hope you stick around, and I hope this helped, and thanks for watching.